welcome. We are continuing our in-depth look back at God of War Ragnarok, probably mine and Matt's game of 2022. You've joined me and Matt. And Matt, did you want to kick off discussion for this episode?
You said you had a question.
I do have a question.
Do you want to start with
that? It kind of leads in. I can start, yeah. Basically, what I wanted to ask you was about the manipulation of Odin and just the whole Odin story arc. But the specific question I'll leave until we get to that point. But I think it would do us some good to kind of start at the very beginning when Odin is introduced and our first impressions of him as a character. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I have watched that first scene with Thor and Odin multiple times over the last few days, and it is just if you were studying how to generate any kind of theatre drama, because it's one room, which I love some element of real stagecraft, like it could be in a play, it could be in a TV show, it could be in a short film. These just handful of people in this room, and how straight away Thor, he's fucking massive. He's a big motherfucker. And the first thing that happens is you see him with Mjolnir, and he goes, "Can I come in?" And start off with, the actor who plays him is fucking magic. I couldn't believe when they announced they'd cast him that they had chosen this guy, because I thought, of course, how could they have known that this guy is the perfect person to bring this monstrous person to life? And then just outside, the bit outside the house, he goes, "Can I come in? I have mead and Kratos." I could recite this from memory.
Yeah.
He goes, "You would not find me good company."
Yeah.
And then
it's just so good. The amount of tension from the off immediately is just palpable. It's so good. Go on, Matt.
The camera is behind Thor's shoulder, just like up here, and Kratos just beckons him with the axe, and Thor, the camera still above his shoulder, comes and just stands in front of him, and Kratos is tiny compared to him, and goes in and they sit down, and the fucking tension of the mead bottle, and he slams everything on the table and pours it out, and instantly I thought, have they made Thor a recovering alcoholic? And the fact that they got that, they made that so subtle, but that gets put in your head straight away when he pours it. Because Thor, all we hear about in the first game is what a drunken monster he is. And then he comes in, and you can the flat affect in his voice sounds like someone who is normally drinking who hasn't been. And the first moment where he puts it down on the table and doesn't instantly drink it made me think, that's an interesting choice to take. Is that what did you pick up on that?
I didn't pick up on that specifically, no. But I just loved how it felt like a really high stakes situation immediately. And it's calling back to the first game, to the very beginning where you meet Baldur and you don't know who he is. And you think about, even in terms of comparing them in size, Baldur's this scrawny little guy who pretends that he's not very strong and starts picking a fight with Kratos, and then Thor just comes in, he's absolutely huge, and he just offers him a drink. Like a complete juxtaposition on both sides. But yeah, it just really played out like a really tense scene in a film where you've got your protagonist and your potentially dangerous, dodgy guy coming in. You don't know what's going to happen. It could all kick off any second. and you're just waiting for something, that trigger point where all the anger is going to rise to the surface. You could just feel it bubbling, and I think it was great.
And the mystery, they keep the mystery going the entire time, because you have no idea what's going to happen in the next 60 seconds ever, because it can go from, it's like in the first game when they at the top of the tallest mountain in Midgard, and they've just opened the gate to Jotunheim, and so you think, oh, it might be the end of the game now, and then 3 minutes later you're in the depths of hell, and you think, how the fuck did we get here? And so when in those moments of quiet and silence, when he walks in and sits down and gets the drinks out, it's silence, and you're going, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
Just what's gonna happen? And just think, why has he come in to talk? Why is he here? Why isn't he drinking? And then the big boss bangs on the door and comes in. Odin she's a mob boss.
Basically, that's exactly the vibe. Yeah, that's exactly the vibe I was getting. I was like, oh, it's just like The Godfather. Not that I've seen that film properly all the way through, but we all know the cultural reference, and it has so much of that going on. You know, well, I'm going to quote Thor here, the calm and reasonable person, you know, that is the vibe that Odin is giving off. That he's a friendly guy. He's just here to chat. There's nothing wrong with it. He understands. It's all good. It's all good. But as long as you do what I say, that kind of thing going on there. There's this like underlying sense that if you cross him, you're going to be in big trouble. And there was this moment. I'm going to skip slightly ahead. And when they're conversing, and Odin kind of offers this deal to Kratos and Atreus and says, if you stop looking for Tyr, because he's realised that's what Atreus is doing, then we'll leave you alone. We'll go away. I think that's the deal, isn't it? And then Kratos just stands up because Odin says, well, what do you think? And Kratos just stands up and he says, after like about 3 seconds, which feels like the longest 3 seconds ever, he says, no.
And
we were all just like,
oh,
yeah, like the gift that people, or whatever the meme that people do. It was just so, in that one word, so much has been said, so much has been defied, a line has been crossed. So Odin now knows the kind of person, or God rather, that he's dealing with, and it's just so impactful. Just that one word. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best lines.
Yeah,
best moments.
And it gets even better when, like, because I love when a character like Odin is a manipulative snake, and it is all flawlessly calculated because he's the only person who knows what's going on the entire time. He knows precisely what he wants, and he knows what he needs in order to get it. And it all revolves around him. He's a con man, him selling it. So he starts off, how do you get, he knows that he needs Atreus, and he knows that he can't just force, you can't force someone like Kratos. If you try and use force against Kratos, you're going to lose. And so he just gets it. And I wonder whether he knew, he must have known, otherwise he wouldn't have done this. He knew that Kratos would say no.
He knew.
But the entire point of all of that theatre was to tell Atreus, don't go looking for Tyr, because he knows that would guarantee it gets them moving in the direction he needs them to go. And I think there's so many different layers to it, because when Kratos says, when he says no, I thought he might say, oh, okay, because he was still trying not to pick a fight with people. But then he says afterwards that he did it because, so the thing that Odin offered Kratos was, I'll stop Freya.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Imagining that was probably the thing that that's the only thing Kratos is really worried about, because I'll talk about the start a little bit later, but he says no because Freya was an ally and a friend, and he would not make a bargain.
Wouldn't want any harm to come
with her
to
enemies.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just so, like, when you finish the game, you kind of realise all the way through that Odin is putting on a show with one hand publicly, like, this is what's happening, you're seeing this, but actually in the background there's a whole heap of other stuff going on that he knows about, and he's playing chess, he's always one step ahead. It's just master manipulator in action, definitely. And I think even to some extent, I'm sure Kratos knows some of the things that are going on in that conversation that aren't being overtly shown. That's natural. That's part of human communication. And a lot of it, so much of that conversation is unsaid. And we are left to try and take from it what we can at this early stage of the game. But looking back, I cannot wait to start New Game Plus with all the knowledge I have now and just view it differently.
And now they've got photo mode.
I know.
They didn't have photo mode at the start.
No. I know.
Yeah, it's batshit. That's the central, like, most crucial skill of a con man is, no matter what someone has seen you do or knows what you've done, because we've heard all the stories about Odin, and he still makes you think you can take him at face value.
Yeah.
He still makes you go, look, we're playing. He convinces you that, we're sitting down for a nice, like, normal face value game of checkers. Okay. And in the meantime, he's playing 3-dimensional chess behind his back, and you're just part of his master plan. They sold that so well.
Yeah, so good. Every time I interacted with him in the game, the back of my brain was like, you can't trust him, you can't trust him. And then the part of my brain that was seeing what I was seeing was like, yeah, but this is fine. The situation is fine. We can trust him.
He seems so reasonable.
Yeah. Oh, it's just so well done. So well done. And yeah, there's so many times I was yelling at the TV when playing as Atreus, just be like, no, Atreus, don't listen. Don't do it. But then I went along with it as well. We were all taken in, definitely. I suppose the question I was going to ask, that I kind of hinted at the beginning, was, I want to know, when did you twig about Tyr not being Tyr?
It was
honestly
something when he turned into Odin. That was literally it.
Yeah.
There was it was only Brock. When Brock, you believe everything Tyr says. It's the same thing with Odin. So you just think, how could he come up with that? How do you? He's a genius, and the fact that it was Brock that was the only one that worked it out.
Yeah, I twigged. I kind of very slowly went up to knowing during the course of that conversation where Brock begins to twig, just before, when he's like, now's the time to go, I know a way in. I know, way into Asgard and all this. And he starts proclaiming all these things. I was like, something's wrong. Yeah. Something's not right. I don't like how this is going. I just had this sense of like that something bad was going to happen. Not necessarily that Tyr wasn't who he said he was, but that something was going wrong in the course of that conversation. And then when Brock started asking these questions, and as soon as Tyr/Odin slapped him, or was it no? Brock slapped him, didn't he? I can't remember what happened. There was some slapping involved. And I was just like, every 5 seconds. Oh, and then the heartbreak of when he turned into Odin and it essentially murdered Brock. It was just all going on, all kicking off all at once. A massive sensory overload. I couldn't even process it properly. But yeah, there are a number of times looking back now that I notice things where Odin slips up, where he like first meets Freya and calls her Frigg, and I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. She doesn't like being called Frigg. And then, of course, because the game is so amazing, it distracts you immediately. And you're like, but what they're saying might be important right now. Let's listen to what they're saying. And you forget about it, and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's just a thing. But actually, of course, that's what Odin referred to Freya as all the time. So if you're smart enough, you could figure it out to that early stage. But yeah, it really did. It was one big surprise. And yeah, even the later revelation that because I kept saying to Tom, my partner, all the way we were playing through, I was like, Tyr's still alive, right? He's not actually dead. When we found out that Tyr was Odin, I was like, the real Tyr is still alive. And he was like, no, he's not alive, no. And then you find him later in prison in Niflheim, I believe. And just having that moment, such a big moment, just tucked away at the end of the game after the main story. Like you couldn't even, if you didn't want to play it, you might not ever find Tyr. And to have such a big moment just tucked into the latter stages there was a ballsy move, but it was very effective, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know how you felt that.
That was one of the finding Tyr at the end. That felt a bit one of the only few things that felt a bit unnecessary and bolted on. It didn't even have a cutscene with it.
No.
And we've had Tyr. He was so real, and how he behaved made so much sense of being trapped and broken, because people get broken. You can have these mighty heroes and they can be broken by the things that happen to them. And just absolutely everything about him made so much sense. So now when you're faced with, the real thing, you think, I don't know who this person is. I thought I understood everything about this person.
It was just very, very strange feeling, wasn't it? I was like, I don't know if I can trust him, even though it's the real version. And I'm like, I still feel really disappointed in him as a character. Just like, even when I didn't know it was Odin, I was like, oh, he's really a bit of a letdown, isn't he? Really, he's not doing much. But yeah, it was just a very strange feeling. And then you can go around to the different realms and find him in different places, just being like, leave me alone. I'm doing yoga. I want to look at the sky. Leave me alone. And then, so yeah, it's just a bit of a strange character, really. Yeah.
And when just the fact that as Brock can't handle bullshit. He's got the best bullshit detector, and he was the only one who could have seen through Odin, and just the fact that just him dying is just awful, just completely awful in every way.
To have that moment kind of snatched away and turned on its head was, yeah, very dramatic, definitely. Just really heartbreaking, especially to see the reaction of all the characters and then to realise that what's actually been happening to this point in the game has all been a lie. What you thought you knew was not what you knew. It's a big thing to deal with, definitely.
Odin's monstrous. Back to we can return back to the opening scene again.
Yes,
that's the sort of tangent we can end up flying down from that, and just the way Odin walks around the entire house and then sits down and he drinks from both of the cups. He's showing I'm the one in charge here. And he talks about the way he talks about Magni and Modi and the way that Thor's wife says, they were that way because Odin threw them at any problem he could, and that just sent them mad. And you just go, oh yeah, Thor's a real person, and he's an abused son, and he is exactly the same as like the sort of trajectory that Kratos has had through his life, because he was a destroyer. He was the servant of Ares, and his dad tried to kill him. That's why he's got the great big scar in his stomach.
Yeah.
And just realised, perhaps. So Thor, Kratos hacks Thor's stomach, and it doesn't heal for the entire game. That's a little bit. I don't know whether it might be a bit of a blunt, like mirror, because Kratos's big scar in his stomach was. Yeah. He's got a big scar in his stomach.
That's right.
He's got a big scar in his stomach.
Yeah.
And when. Yeah, so the way that they mirror each other, and Kratos sees Thor in himself and the other way around.
Yeah.
And when Odin says, Magni and Modi, they were worthless, and Thor just turns away, because you think that's what abusive like parent-child relationships are like. It doesn't matter how strong and powerful the child might become. They feel like a tiny little terrified thing.
Yeah.
And it also struck me that, so him insulting those two and going, whatever. Self-defense. That's a brutal word to be. Imagine that being said by your father about your grandchildren. Yeah. And then he moves on to Balder. And he says he had value, my tracker, my closer.
Yeah.
He's his son. Balder was Odin's son, and you would never know that from the way he talks about him.
No.
And it's like, you killed my son, you killed Thor's brother, and we want repayment for that. That just... Those clues of the real darkness in Odin, but the show he puts on is so. You don't have to worry about me.
Yeah, I'm not the problem here. Yeah. It's so complex. I think it's kind of a grim topic, but I think it's one of the best portrayals in any medium or scene of coercive control and abuse within like a family sphere, and how frankly villainous that is. When you think about video game villains, they're usually like more on the pantomime end of the scale. They've got X motivation because they're evil, but in this one it's just an illustration of hunger for knowledge and power, and how that corrupts and and turns someone into someone who will do anything to get that knowledge and power, even if it means abusing the family around you. And that is, it's interesting to kind of dive into that and how it's impacting the story. Definitely.
Yeah, that is, it captures that kind of dynamic perfectly, because how do you, the most interesting stories always end up being about families, and particularly the families of gods. They're also capricious and strange because they're immortal and powerful. But you can still boil it down to that kind of, that same family dynamic. Relationships between individuals are still going to be the same kinds of relationships. And it's just horrible, the way, just seeing him, the way he interacts with his family.
Yeah. But I'm sure we can discuss in another episode, like, the relationships between him and Sif and Thrud as well, and like the dynamics between, obviously, the way that women are represented as goddesses and how that plays against the male gods, and just the, this podcast, as you might know, is about feminism and how that interacts with gaming. And I think there's a lot to explore there in terms of how that's reflecting some of the more toxic aspects of I've forgotten the word, patriarchy. That's the one. It'll come back to me eventually. It's a slow start in January. But there's certainly a lot we could talk about there. And also, actually, another thing's occurred to me, toxic masculinity as well, and how a lot of the characters, Kratos being the main one, that kind of look at that and move away from it and accept themselves and grow and like understand that they don't need to hold themselves to this impossible standard of like the alpha male to be a good person in society, or the best, or a good father, that kind of thing. There's all sorts I'm sure we can delve into in more detail.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com. If you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.